So what advice would I give to a young human rights lawyer? A couple of things. First, I would strongly suggest that you have an expansive idea of what human rights work is. For example, human rights work is environmental justice work. Human rights work is criminal justice work. Human rights work is domestic, right? So as the center has a human rights at home initiative, you should feel committed to be doing human rights work domestically, whether that be in the US or whatever country you're in. So that's the first piece of advice I would give. The second thing I would say is that ground your human rights work in clients, right? So sometimes people have a tendency to know what maybe is good for the community without speaking to the community. And I would urge against this. Instead, I would urge that you do your human rights work through clients, whether that be individual clients representing them in courts or before regional human rights bodies, but also organizational clients. So if you are doing field work, if you're doing policy advocacy work, you do it with an organization on the ground who knows what's best for that community. The last thing I would say, and this is really both for your clients, but really for yourselves as well, is human rights work is very difficult. It's very emotionally draining. You almost always are dealing with issues and people related to trauma. And so I would really urge you to seek out training in trauma-informed lawyering so you can understand your client better, but you can also understand yourself and what post-secondary trauma could do and how to take care of. So that's the advice I would give. So what role has the center played in legal education and in the promotion and protection of human rights? In the 30 years the center has been active, it has been provided a critical bridge between academia and civil society in its different buckets of education and training, research and scholarship, and litigation and advocacy. Specifically, over the decades, the center has formed timely partnerships between academics, students, activists, and civil society organizations around the world. And the most relevant to my work, so specifically, the center's litigation advocacy has provided crucial experiential learning opportunities in its impact litigation project and its COVA project. Students have been able to work with organizational clients in providing impactful litigation opportunities and also working with UN bodies in its advocacy work. In what direction do I see human rights going in the next 30 years? We're at a critical time in terms of the direction of human rights, specifically in relation to migration, right? So something that has been very highlighted in the past decade has been the increase in migration globally, not only in the US, but globally. And the issue of treating migration as a crisis, as opposed to something that's here to stay, is something that needs to change. And so one thing that I forecast in the next decades is that there will be a shift in the way that we see the human rights of migrants and the issue of migration as something that we address more long-term. The other related issue is economic justice. I think that the human rights community will have to do much more around economic justice issues, and relatedly, that will address the issues of why migration even happens, right? So what are the economic justice issues in country, in source country for these migrants, but also regionally that can address the human rights concerns of our most vulnerable folks. I think also that climate change and climate refugee issues will need to be addressed more directly and more expansively. And lastly, I'll say that we will be needed to contend more with the rise in nationalism and fascism, both in country, in the US, but also globally, and how the advancement of human rights will need to be defended in that context.